My dear students, welcome you all to yet one more short video lessons that will help you in your better preparation for your PI and also GD both. As a part of your campus drive, you face these two. See, I'll take you back a little. Last video I had discussed about inferiority complex, right? The exact topic was getting rid of inferiority complex, and in the process, how do you develop your self-confidence? Self-confidence is so important, Now, today I'll just go into the opposite, that is superiority complex. Now, the title of today's video will be superiority bias, which is also called illusory superiority. You see, some of us always carry this notion in our mind, quite a wrong notion. I am quite different. I am more rational. I am more intelligent. I am smarter than my other friends, colleagues. More ethical I am, right? And all superlative in all respect. Now, this is what is indication of somebody is having a superiority bias. Now, going ahead, what this superiority bias is? In a simple term, we can say superiority bias is a common cognitive bias, right? Where people consistently overestimate their own positive qualities as compared to others. And you students also, right? You sometimes overestimate yourselves, right? Now, these are actually instances when you think you are better than others, even when you really are not so. Now, in the process, what happens? One might not notice one's own weaknesses. That means you are ignoring your own weaknesses because you are evaluating or overrating your own capability. Now, psychologists have named this as illusory superiority, right? Or the above average effect. Some people also coined what is called a Lake Wobegon effect. Now, this feeling of better than average or superiority bias is often seen in students at workplaces, right? And also in social life. What happens in students, right? With the students. Students might think they are smarter, they are performing far better than others. In reality, they may not be. And at works, what happens? Some employees or people might believe that they are better in their job than their co-workers. And in society, what happens? In social life, some people might think they are more popular and have a better personality, right? And people focus more on their own strength and others' weaknesses, not their own, right? Now, during this comparison, they may land up in some sort of frictional relationship with others. Now, in a research study in Sweden and United States of America, it was found that people thought they were safer and more skilled drivers than average, people. Now, this is a tendency, is one of the research finding. Now, of course, one can say a little bit of self-confidence is healthy, but then superiority illusion, that is what we call as superiority bias, have a negative consequence, right? What all negative consequences it can lead to, particularly in a recruitment drive or a selection or a GD, PI round or a GD, it can lead to overconfidence, right? Then also it prevents learning and also growth. And one might commit wrong decisions. So, poor decision making could result out of this, illusion or rather superiority illusion, right? There could be conflict with others, which I have already stated, and in a GDPI, you should, healthily compete, never come into conflict with others. Now, this superiority illusion or the superiority bias, right? Why at all it happens, right? Why do we overestimate ourselves? Let us see some of the reasons. One of the principal reasons what the researchers have found out here is we tend to compare ourselves to others who are similar to us. In a group discussion, what happens? We, often compare ourselves with others who are seated next to us, right? Also in PI round, same thing happen. In the college, we compare ourselves with our roommates, our classmates, but we ignore, students at large in other institutions with whom we are going to ultimately compete. Now, second reason which has been found out, why this happens, we often we often are very selective in receiving only positive feedbacks. What does it mean? We are very happy to receive somebody praising us, but pointing out our flaws, we are, very much unhappy with. So we don't receive it in equal, interest. So the selective positive feedbacks that we are interested in receiving, what it leads to? It inflates our ego, reinforce our belief in our superiority, belief bias. There is one more thing, people have found out, these are the outcome of the research, which has been titled as Dunning-Kruger effect. What it says? It says that people overestimate their skills just because they cannot see their own lack of knowledge and abilities. This is an outcome of the combination of two things. First of all, poor self-awareness, and second thing, low cognitive abilities that ultimately leads to self-overestimation. Now, superiority bias in general is not that good, right? But once it becomes a habit with you, you carry that into your selection process also. When you are, say, when you are appearing in a job interview. So if you have this tendency of superiority bias, right, which is at times, named as narcissism, right, in a candidate, this can significantly hamper your chances of a job interview favorable outcome, right? Now, this in a candidate will have adverse effect on both while you are facing a PI and also participating in a group discussion, right? Now, let us see what are the tendency or traits, rather, TRATIS, traits, personality traits that you exhibit if you carry this superiority bias in you, right? And particularly we are referring to job interview. So, first thing is this appearing to be arrogant, right? What you do in the process, your behavior, you interrupt more often your colleagues, fellow participants in a JD, and also the interviewers. When they are asking you, you start interrupting them. Before they finish, you start butting in. So this is a tendency of trying to dominate the conversation rather than listening. Now, second thing, due to this arrogant, trait in you, which is again indicates that you have a superiority bias, right? You always try to focus on self. Your sentence could be like this: I don't care of others, how they feel, what they say, right? Second thing, what happens is, negative comparison you always tend to make, right? Regarding past performance, if there is a question about your past performance in an interview, your interviewer asking about how was your past performance, right? What all you did in your previous organization. So if you are, having this superiority bias, your reply could be somewhere like this: I was the top performer and always the team struggled without me. I was that indispensable, right? So what the interviewers will perceive you, how they are going to perceive you, right? They will be always perceiving you, negatively. That is a arrogant candidate, and you are not very appealing to them. Likewise, bad mouthing your previous employer. right? What is bad mouthing is, sharing some negatives about your previous employer, right? Suppose there is a question like this to you in an interview. What would you like to change about your last job, right? So your answer could be, I would change my boss. They don't understand my brilliance, right? This is again showing you, in a way, your arrogance, and you are also in the process bad mouthing your previous employer. Never ever speak negative about your previous employer. Now these type of answers makes you look negative, unprofessional, and also untrustworthy. If you are speaking ill of your previous employer, the current employer will also presume that you might do the same with them. Fourth is self-exaggeration. Self-exaggeration, is also the outcome of superiority bias, right? This sometimes, called grandiosity, 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 right? The candidate is stating like this: I single-handedly turned around the entire sales department in my previous organization, right? Suppose the interviewers are asking what all you did in your previous organization as a sales or marketing executive. Could you share with us something? Then see how, with superiority bias, the candidate is expressing, I single-handedly turned around the entire sales department. Or you can also say like this, I am the most innovative person they have ever been in their organization. Both this type of sentence, you are exaggerating your own accomplishment, right? Next is, people who have this superiority bias, they also have a tendency of getting defensive when challenged by the interviewers. Now, interviewee often seen shifting blames, making excuses, denying mistakes rather than taking the responsibility, right? Suppose, you are late to the interview, right? Obviously, it will go against you and you will be perceived, in a little bit poor light. So, when they ask you about your delayed, presence, what you are saying, if you are a superiority bias person, I was late because the traffic jam, without acknowledging your own responsibility that you could have done something, contemplating or anticipating there could be this. Likewise, sometimes, due to this superiority bias, you are going to ruin your chances of, having a favorable result at the end. So, what you do is giving short or one-word answers. You feel you need not, explain in sentences, 1 or 2 sentences at least. You are very short. So, giving answers like yes, no, fine, wrong, incorrect, yes, I do, I don't. No, these are all intentionally, when you are responding this type of answers, then you will also be perceived as someone who has a superiority bias. Now, this could be interpreted as something called stonewalling, passive aggression, shows that you are not interested, right? Likewise, one more thing happens, people who are superiority bias people, or candidate rather we are talking about, excessive I statements, especially when we discuss our own success, right? Single-handedly I achieved this. This is what the tendency are when you are answering. For example, I delivered the project on time. Now, you might not have done it alone. You might be a part of the team. Sorry. What could be the better answer? You could say, I focused on the project timeline, ensuring that the team delivered the schedule. So, you are not claiming that you alone, did everything. Because if you are stating this way, I tendency, excessive statements, I did that, I did, that. So, what happens, it will sound very arrogant and also self-centered, right? This is a bias, right? Now, before I conclude, let's take one challenging question. The interviewer is asking the question this way: your resume shows you left your last role after only a year. Can you explain what happened there? Very obvious question, normally they ask you to, right? So, a superiority biased answer could be like this: well, the company culture was toxic and my boss was incompetent. They didn't appreciate my skills and so I had to leave, not to waste my time. Great loss to them. Now, this is the answer which will never be appreciated and you will never be taken positively, right? Now, the very same question can be answered in an assertive way with due respect to the interviewers and without bad mouthing about your previous employer. How could you say that? Let's take the example. Now, the very same question the interviewer is asking: your resume shows you left your last role after only a year. Can you explain what happened there? See the answer. That's right, sir. I joined with a high hope with a long-term intent. But the job assigned changed significantly very soon, which didn't align with my goals. While I learned a great deal about managing online marketing of pharmaceutical products, I realized the role wasn't the right long-term fit for me, right? So, this was a very humble, very polite way of responding, right? So, dear students and the future job seekers, professionals, studies you are pursuing right now, remember certain things before I conclude. Interviewers are not just assessing your skill, mind you, your only competence. They are also evaluating simultaneously about your likability, your collaborative nature, how you can work in a team. Will you fit into the organizational culture, team culture, right? So, therefore, you have to project confidence, but not overconfidence. Don't show ever your arrogance. Be honest about your strengths and weaknesses. Interviewers can very easily, make a difference between your, egoistic led answers. Now, modesty and humility is always a better option, right? So, in a job interview, maintain a balance and professional demeanor. Avoid both superiority and also inferiority complex. Strike a balance between the two. Be authentic, aim to be genuine yourself, right? Don't try to be too pretentious. Now, your goal should be to find a good fit for both you and the company, right? Now, superiority complex and arrogance is a silent killer of success, particularly in professional settings. Okay, thank you, all the best. Now, before I wind up, again the same old, appeal to you all. If you like this video, it makes some sense, adds some value to you, do please subscribe, share and like. Okay, thank you.